The Naimans are one of those peoples whose history doesn't have simple explanations. Sometimes they are called descendants of the ancient Turks, sometimes Mongols, and sometimes heirs of a forgotten Khanate in the Altai. But one thing is clear, the Naimans were a force to be reckoned with. They fought with the Khitans, contested power with Chinggis Khan, and then spread throughout Eurasia. Their legacy remained in the Golden Horde. Among the Timurids, in Kazakh clans, even among Lithuanian Tatars, they had their own writing, faith, statehood, and a sense of dignity, a rarity for the steppe peoples of that time. Hello friends, you're on the Amazing History channel, where we talk not just about facts, but about people. To everyone who supports the project, likes and writes comments, it's thanks to you that this video was made. Before I move directly to the history of the Naimans, let's first figure out where they actually came from, because their roots go so deep into history that scholars are still debating them to this day. The word Naiman itself means 8 in Mongolian, and that's no coincidence, because originally it was a union of 8 tribes that roamed between the Altai, Tarbagatai, and the upper reaches of the Irtysh. Chinese chronicles also mention a tribal union known as Segiz Agus. It was from them that the Naimans originated, first mentioned in the 8th century during the collapse of the Second Turkic Khanate. Legends say Naiman ancestors were saved by a sacred berkut that led them to the Golden Mountains, making berkut hunting taboo for them since then. Another symbol is the dog, guardian of the land, which is why the Naimans claim to have a dog's liver. The sign of endurance and loyalty in these images represents the two poles of their worldview, the heavenly protector and the earthly guardian. However, the origin of the Naimans remains a subject of debate. Some researchers consider them descendants of ancient Turkic tribes, while others see them as part of the early Mongolian world. Some sources call them Western Turks. Others refer to them as White Tatars, linguistically similar to the Mongols. These contradictions show that the Naimans stood at the crossroads of cultures and eras, absorbing features of both worlds. They used Turkic titles, but spoke a dialect close to Old Mongolian. This borderland character became their strength. The Naimans communicated well with neighbors and quickly adopted anything that made them stronger. After the collapse of the Uyghur Khanate in 840, the steppe was not left empty. New powers began to rise in the old nomadic lands, the Kerites, the Merkits, the Tumats, and the Naimans. The latter quickly stood out among their neighbors. They lived in the lands between the Altai and the upper reaches of the Irtysh, a region where the steppe meets the mountains and caravans traveled from China to Central Asia. This location gave the Naimans security and trade. In the 10th century, the Khitan, a Tungusic people, invaded the east and founded the Liao Empire. From that moment on, the Naiman became constant participants in the struggle for power in Central Asia. In chronicles, they appear as a serious force opposing the Liao and other steppe confederations. At first they suffered defeats, then they won victories, but by the 11th century they already had their own Khan and their own state. According to Rashid al-Din, one of the first reliably known rulers of the Naiman was Inanch Bilge Bukukan. During his time, the Ulus covered lands from western Mongolia to eastern Kazakhstan. The Naiman had their own hierarchy, a system of military ranks, and a tradition of writing inherited from the Uyghurs. The Khan issued orders sealed with a golden seal, and the army was divided into tens and thousands. Just like the ancient Turks, laws were based on discipline and custom, where treason or theft were considered serious crimes. Their religion remained Tengrism, the cult of the sky, where a person was seen as part of the natural order. Later, influenced by missionaries, some nobles adopted Nestorian Christianity, but it didn't take root. By the 12th century, the Naiman Khanate had become one of the strongest nomadic states in the region. It competed with the Kerites, formed alliances with the Uyghurs, and traded with China. But after the death of Inanch Bilge Bukukan, a situation typical for that time occurred. His two sons, Buyruk Khan and Tayan Khan, could not share power. Each considered himself the only legitimate heir. This split marked the beginning of the end. Buyruk controlled the western lands, while Tayan ruled the eastern ones. Instead of unity as under their father, the steppe was now plunged into rivalry. While the brothers argued over who was stronger, Temujin, the future Genghis Khan, was already gaining power. He understood that to conquer the steppe, he first needed to destroy the old Khanates, the Karaites and the Naimans. In 1203 the Karaites fell, and then it was the Naimans' turn. In the spring of 1204, the armies of Tayan Khan and Temujin met at the foot of the Kungai Mountains. Buyruk Khan did not help his brother, leading to a total Naiman defeat. Tayan Khan was killed, and the remaining army fled to the Altai. A couple of years later, the same fate befell the domain of Buyruk Khan. The remaining Naimans fled south to the Buktama River Valley and joined the Merkits and Karaites, but the Mongols caught up with them there. After another defeat, Tayan Khan's son Kuchluk led the survivors southeast to Semirechye. He found refuge with the Karakitans and married Gurkhan's daughter, the Karakitan ruler. However, Kuchluk did not settle for the role of son-in-law. He overthrew Gurkhan and took the throne himself. After establishing a harsh regime and starting the persecution of Muslims, this decision proved to be fatal. When Chinggis Khan completed the conquest of Central Asia, he sent an army under the command of Jebenoyan against Kuchluk. In 1218, the Naiman ruler was defeated, fled to Pamir, where he was captured and executed. After Kuchluk's death, the independent Naiman Khanate ceased to exist. But their story didn't end there. Those who had fought Chinggis Khan now joined his empire. Some clans joined the Ulysses of Chinggis Khan's sons, Joshi, Ogadei, and Tolui, while others settled in eastern Kazakhstan, Mongolia, and the Altai. Many Naimans swore allegiance to the new power, took key roles in the Mongol army, joined western campaigns, and formed tumans, especially under Jebe and Subedei. In 1223, the Naimans joined the renowned campaign across the Caucasus and southern Rus at the Kalka River. They stood among those who defeated the united army of the Rus princes and the Polovtsians. For the Mongols it was another victory, but for the Naimans it was a chance to restore their lost honor. Later, the Naimans took part in the campaigns of the Khan. They fought near Ryazan, Chernigov, and Kiev. Historians note that it was the Naiman warriors who made up one of the most disciplined parts of the horde's army. A special fame was gained by the commander Ketbuga Nayon, a Naiman by origin, who served under Hulagu Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan. In 1258, he took part in the capture of Baghdad and became one of the key military leaders of the state. Ilkansov. Ketbuga led the campaign against Syria and Egypt. In the Battle of Ain Jalut in 1260, his army faced the Egyptian Mamluk army of Baybars. The battle ended in defeat. Ketbuga himself was captured and executed, but he remained in the memory of descendants as an example of a warrior who did not retreat even in the face of inevitable death. By the mid-14th century, Genghis Khan's empire had broken into several Ulyses and Khanates. The Naimans, who were settled from the Altai to the Irtish, became part of the new political map of Eurasia in the steppes of eastern Kazakhstan and along the Irtish. The Naimans joined the Joki Ulus, which later formed the Golden Horde, and entered the military nobility. The Naiman clans joined the conflicts among Khan Bati's descendants, fighting in Crimea, along the Volga, and in the North Caucasus steppes. They were valued for their discipline and ability to keep formation. Inherited from the nomadic era, when the horde weakened, some Naimans served new rulers in Muscovy, Lithuania, and Crimea. In the west, former steppe dwellers quickly adapted, joining the cavalry and garrisons as border guards and messengers. Over time, many of them received land allotments and became part of the local nobility. Sources from the 14th and 15th centuries mention the Tatar banner as part of Lithuanian and Polish armies. And people from the Naiman clans, other Naimans remained in the steppes, where some joined the Siberian Khanate and others became part of the Kazan and Crimean Tatars. They no longer called themselves a separate people, but the memory of their Naiman origin was preserved in family traditions and legends. After the weakening of the Golden Horde and the collapse of the old horde possessions in Central Asia, a new redistribution of power began in Siberia. During this time, Timur, Tamerlane, a commander from Mavaranar, gained power in the south and united Samarkand, Bukhara, and the valley under his rule. The Sir Darya Naimans eventually fell under his control and joined Timur's military system. These were tribal groups from Semirechye and Turkestan, who had pastures along the Sir Darya, winter camps near the foothills, and served in Timur's army for food and a share of the spoils. Those who received the characteristics, the soldiers brought the battle closer. He did not survive at birth. It is forbidden to teach. Except for the Naimans. Some of the clans became the court cavalry, some became border units in the steppe towns, and some lived as they always had, wandering and trading with caravans. When the Shaybanids replaced the Timurids, the Naimans once again found themselves among those who provided for the campaigns and guarded not so much the field headquarters as the roads and markets. Gradually, living among the Uzbeks, the Naimans lost their former isolation, but they preserved their clan memory, knew their lineages, married within their kin, helped each other in times of trouble, and followed the old customs. Further north. Meanwhile, the Kazakh Khanate was finally taking shape, and the Naimans became one of the main clans of the Middle Jews, the largest and most politically influential union. In the steppe, their nomadic routes ranged from Balkhash to the upper Irtish and the foothills of Tarbagatai, reaching the mountain valleys of eastern Kazakhstan. Their summer camps were set up in the foothills, where the grass was thick, and their winter camps were located in sheltered river valleys. The clan's internal life was sustained by a clear system, senior and junior branches, and BIY councils making decisions. Disputes according to adat, customary law that was passed down from generation to generation. If a war began, every AUL knew how many horsemen they needed to send. People gathered along family lines quickly, and for the Naimans it was simple. If the clan called, you got on your horse and joined your people. From the late 17th through the 18th century, the steppe endured constant anxiety. From the east came a force that even the Dzungars feared, leaving burned camps and stolen herds after their raids. The eastern lands, home to the Naimans, were hit first. In those days, the single word Dzungar Shapkini, the Dzungar invasion, meant only one thing. It was time to gather the clan and prepare for war. The Naimans, together with other clans of the Middle Juz, took part in all the major battles of that war. Among them were people whose names became part of the people's memory. Kabanbay Batir, an experienced warrior, led Naiman and Argin detachments and fought in key battles near the Irtish and on the Bulanti and Aktamberdi Sari banks. He was not only a warrior, but also a poet who raised the spirit of the fighters with his songs and left a living testimony of that time. This decades-long struggle scorched the steppe, mixed peoples, and shifted borders. But it was during that time that the Naimans developed a sense of unity not only with their own clan, but with the entire Kazakh people. After Dzungaria's 1757 defeat, the eastern Kazakh steppe changed hands. But along with peace came a new reality, the strengthening of neighboring powers. From the east, the Qing Empire was advancing, and from the north, the Russian Empire. The Naimans, who lived between the Irtish and Tarbagatai, found themselves right at this crossroads. At first, this was expressed through diplomacy. Kazakh Khans and BIYs negotiated with Russian border commanders, asked for protection from the remaining Dzungars, made trade agreements, and sought political support. For the Naiman clans, this meant gradually being drawn into the orbit of the Russian Empire without direct subordination, but already with restrictions on nomadic routes and movement. In the late 18th century, Russian outposts and forts, including Semipalatinsk, Ust-Kamenogorsk, and Bukhtarma, appeared along the Irtish. Markets and fairs were opened next to them, attracting Kazakhs from all over eastern Kazakhstan. The Naimans brought livestock, wool, and hides there, exchanging them for bread, iron, and fabrics. Trade gradually replaced raids and made the steppe a part of the empire's overall economy. By the 19th century, this was already noticeable everywhere. Nomadic camps began to be recorded, maps appeared, lists of ales, taxes, elders appointed through official channels. Participation in military conflicts was replaced by service in the cavalry guard as guides in transportation. At the Naiman fairs, you could meet both herders, intermediaries, and even the first entrepreneurs of the steppe. At the same time, the traditional way of life did not disappear. Clan ties remained the foundation of life, joint grazing, mutual assistance in years of famine, and elders whom people turned to for advice. Every Ayol had both a mullah and a bey representing spiritual and secular authorities. In schools and at mosques, literacy was taught using the Arabic script, and in the steppe, disputes were still resolved according to adat, just as their ancestors did. Today, the Naiman are one of the largest and most recognizable clans in Kazakhstan. Most of them live in the east, Pavlodar, Karaganda, and Almaty regions, especially in areas where their ancestors used to roam since the times of the Middle Zuz. Significant groups also live in Mongolia, China, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Russia, mainly in the Altai and Siberia regions. Ethnographers say several million Naiman descendants live in Kazakhstan, but the exact number is unclear. In modern society, clan affiliation often remains an element of tradition rather than official identification. Nevertheless, the memory of the clan has not disappeared. The clan structure of the Naiman is still alive, especially in culture and everyday life. In villages and small towns, large clan gatherings are still held, where ancestors are remembered. At such gatherings, outstanding bais and batirs are honored, the origin of the clan is discussed, and the memory of the past is passed on to new generations. Among the Naimans, there are many well-known politicians, scientists, writers, and entrepreneurs of modern Kazakhstan, and almost every one of them emphasizes that clan memory is not archaic, but a part of the country's cultural code. In Mongolia and China, the Naimans have long become part of the Mongolian and Uyghur communities, but they retain their own name and dialect features. In Altai, there are small groups of Naimans, descendants of the Naimans who settled in the mountain regions after the Mongol conquests and have preserved their name to this day. Everywhere, they adapted while maintaining respect for their origins. The history of the Naimans is about a people who endured wars, migrations, an empire's collapse, and changing eras. They lost their states, but they never lost the memory of their lineage. The Naimans served in Genghis Khan's army under Timur, joined Central Asian Khans, and formed the Middle Juz's backbone. Their strength was never in numbers, but in their ability to stick together, adapt to new times, and preserve their name. And perhaps this is the main legacy they left to their descendants. Well, that's all from me. Thank you for watching and see you in the next episode. Goodbye, everyone.